Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Haas, and I think it's time to do a bit more SMITE. This time we're playing Freya, the Norse queen of the Valkyries. Freya is a bit of a different character. She is technically melee of course, that is to say her basic attacks are melee range, but she plays out more as a ranged character. She is also classified as a mage. In other words, she needs magic power and relies heavily on active abilities. Now as you can see we're going mid here, partially because this is solo queue and I simply don't know any of my other team members, but mostly because Freya can be a really potent mid hero if you play her cards right. As you can see I picked the Vampiric Shroud and Death's Toll items. These two items will give you a ton of sustain, which is something Freya already has quite a bit of, but it also gives you more health and simply more damage. Death's Toll will give you health and mana back when you hit an enemy, and Vampiric Shroud will give you more health and mana back when you kill an enemy. Obviously, enemy here also means they're creeps. If you are going anything other than mid, say you're laning with a buddy in the left or right lane, I wouldn't recommend getting both, as you can't get any other items early on if you go this way. In that case, I would recommend going with 1 rank of Vampiric Shroud and 1 rank of Boots of the Magi, because movement speed is simply more important in a 2 vs 2 lane, whereas it's not such a huge focus in 1-on-1. You can then also get a health potion if you get in trouble. We're starting in one of the jungle buffs, namely the speed buff. The speed buff itself is pretty pointless for us because we're not going to be this aggressive early on, but this way we're going to get, at least that's the idea, a bit of an experience lead, even though our enemy is likely doing the same. It seems they don't want the speed buff, so I'll pick it up instead, but again, I'm not going to be this aggressive early on, so really there is no point for me having this. Coincidentally, our enemy is another Freya. Now I think this Freya has done something which I'd consider is a little bit dumb. She has bought 2 active abilities. Active abilities in SMITE can't be sold, meaning throughout this entire game she will be stuck with these 2, and the ones she has picked are Meditation and Sprint. These are good in their own rights, but against another Freya I would always recommend picking up Aegis Amulet to block her ultimate with, which is something we'll get into in a moment. On that note, the first ability we picked is called Pulse. Pulse basically makes Freya's attack ranged, which is really the bread and butter of Freya. It gives her 10% magical lifesteal, additional magic damage, and slows on a small AoE hit. This is, again, really something we'll be using a lot. We'll be using it to push lanes, through pushing, get health and mana back, and essentially it is also going to be our highest damage ability for a long time. The second ability I picked up is called Banish. Banish is a crowd control ability and lifts up your enemies. During their little time in the air, they are invulnerable, but more importantly, can't actually attack you or really do anything. This is useful, of course, first as an escape. If an enemy jumps you, you can quickly lift them up and run away, but it's also really useful to line up your attacks, as I tried to do here, but lifted up the creeps. Basically, you can lift up an enemy, quickly cast Pulse, and get a few solid hits in this way. It's of course also useful to simply block out an enemy during a fight. So the plan for laning here is basically activating Pulse as much as possible and pushing the lanes with Pulse. Every hit should give us a bit more mana and health back from Death's Toll, and every kill should give us even more health and mana back from Vampiric Shroud, so we should be able to do this for a pretty long time. Our enemy Freya hasn't actually picked up Death's Toll and Vampiric Shroud, but does have a few health potions. Either way, if we play our cards right, we should be able to stay in lane longer. At level 4, we pick up our first ability called Irradiate. Irradiate is basically a little buff that gives us 10% physical lifesteal, additional magic damage, but is still melee, so it's not a huge focus, and Pulse is more important. Throughout this all, you should consider leveling up Pulse first, followed by Irradiate and then Banish, of course picking up 1 rank of Banish at level 2. Once we hit level 5, we'll get our ultimate. Now our ultimate is called Valkyries Discretion, and this is pretty amazing. If we activate our ultimate, Freya will take off into the skies and fly for a small period of time. During that time you can attack 4 times, which are basically small AoE nukes doing tons of damage. During this, Freya is completely invulnerable, and you can use this to also escape other ultimates. Say for instance, Ares' not so appropriately named No Escape ability, where he basically grabs you in a bunch of chains. Or you can simply fly out of something like Odin's Ring of Spears, making it not only a really good nuke, but also a really good defensive skill. Keeping in mind that Valkyrie's Discretion does slow you down quite a bit, and is only for a very short time, so it's not such a capable escape as, say, Apollo's ultimate or Thor's. So what's going to keep happening here is we're going to keep flinging pulse beams at each other with not much going on. Eventually I should be able to out-harass her though, because she is of course reliant on that meditation and health potions to get her health and mana back, whereas I have a much more continuous sustain. Now she does damage me a bit here and is a little bit ahead in experience, simply because she pushed the lane a little bit further than I did, but it's nothing a few pulse beams or two can't fix. Now she actually lifts me up here and I respond by lifting her up, but that really was pointless because I knew she didn't have meditation ready and thus had no mana to actually kill me. But again, that little bit of wasted mana isn't a big deal because of Death's Toll and Vampiric Shroud, and I should be able to get this mana and health back pretty easily. If you're doing this, of course, keep your attention to the side lanes. They still exist, which is something a lot of mid players seem to forget. There is really no excuse to getting ganked in the middle, because you can actually see them through walls as long as your teammates have them spotted, and if they're not spotted, simply don't go out that far. You shouldn't be pushing out that far in most situations anyway, because they simply get free experience, unless you're actually going for a tower kill here, which I'm not. So this is going to continue like we do now. We're going to keep pushing the lane, push little cart, push little lane, and that's really about it for the next coming minutes. So a little bit later, she is probably noticing I have better sustain. She has already used meditation to get her mana back, and she is likely running out of health potions, so she does something a little bit curious. She activates Valkyrie's Discretion and hits me a few times, not doing critical damage, so I can still stick around. She runs away with Sprint because I could probably kill her because I still have my own Valkyrie's Discretion, and she's going to recall back to base. There's a few things I can do here. I can go back myself in order to get more items. I can push the tower, which probably won't work because she can get back in time. So instead, I'm going right, as I can see Anhur and Thor are trying to get Bastet and aren't doing a very bad job at it. They're actually almost getting her, and Thor activates his ultimate, but it seems Bastet is making it out alive. Bastet is of course a very fast character. Now I go around the corner here and notice that Thor is very low on health, so I carefully wait, activate my own Valkyrie's Discretion and finish him off with 3 hits. Hoping to get on her, I sadly miss my banish, but Umir puts up a frost wall, but it isn't enough. There's a lot of creeps in the way, and on her actually knocks back Umir with a spear and seems to make it out alive. Regardless though, we got Thor and Bastet didn't die, so major success. What I should have done here though is wait for Anhur to jump and then use Banish on him so I can lift him up and Umir and Bastet have more time to get back towards him. Either way though, we got a kill, so I can't be too pessimistic about it, right? I have enough gold here to completely finish Boots of the Magi, which should give me more magic power, more mana, more magic penetration, and of course a lovely, lovely movement speed. I also pick up Aegis Amulet in order to block the enemy Freya's Valkyrie's Discretion and a few health potions just for sustain. As I move back to mid, I notice the enemy Freya isn't actually there yet, so I might as well get a few jungle buffs. Jungle buffs are really good and you should always try and get them if you can, and I now actually have a use for the speed buff. I did see Freya there in the mid for a second, and I don't want her to get our tower. I do want her to make the mistake I mentioned earlier though, with me and Bastet missing, so pushing the lane too far is very dangerous for her, and she is actually doing that right now without any mana. I have the speed buff, I activate Pulse, I'm slowing her, I'm damaging her, she has to use meditation, she uses meditation, she uses Valkyrie's Discretion in order to survive longer, it doesn't do any major damage, I line up Banish, I hit her with Banish, I line up Pulse, and I finish her off with Pulse. I could have used my own Valkyrie's Discretion in order to avoid the damage, but that would have just been a waste. Now, she is dead, I can probably push the lane, but I notice the entire right lane is missing. Regardless, I'm just gonna move out a bit, try and push the lane as far as I can, which is a very dangerous thing to do. I of course don't want to repeat what the enemy Freya just did, so instead I'm gonna see if I can get their red buff. Their red buff is of course the damage buff, which would be really useful, but as I try and get it, I notice Anhur is coming towards me, hits me with a spear, hits me with partially his ultimate, I activate my ultimate in order to avoid his damage, I hit him with it, he jumps, he misses with his jump, I use Banish, I miss with my Banish, and I use Irradiate and Pulse and finish him off with a lot of damage. If you combine Irradiate with Pulse, it will no longer do AoE and it won't slow either, but instead turn into a hugely effective single target DPS ability, because you get both magic damage buffs from Irradiate and Pulse. A bit later, their Freya is probably a little bit pissed. My buffs are running out, and she is pushing the lane hard. She actually lifts me in the air here and activates Valkyrie's discretion, but I have Aegis, and this is why Aegis is so useful. You can completely block all the damage from Freya's ultimate, which otherwise probably would have killed me right here. Now we're past the 12-minute mark, but our mid tower is still standing, and they're still trying to get it, but of course I won't let her. I actually engage on the enemy Freya with Banish, and I activate Pulse in order to hit her. I don't want to use Valkyrie's discretion here because she still has her, so mine would be wasted. I note Right is in a bit of a scrap, so I quickly go over there. I activate Sprint, which is the second active ability I bought. I activate Valkyrie's discretion when just in range and snipe off on her. I notice their Thor is a pretty low level actually. He hasn't been doing that well this game, so I lift him in the air with Banish. I hit him a few times, but he stuns me and quickly gets out of there with his ultimate. I hear the sound of an enemy Banish behind me, and that's an enemy Freya who's chasing me. I notice Umair is coming towards me, so I run over towards him. She activates Valkyrie's discretion. I activate Aegis to block it. Umair freezes her. I manage to hit with nothing, apparently. I'm waiting for Umair's Frostwall, who does use it, so we hit her a bit more. She is managing to escape. I somehow manage to miss with Banish. I hit, sadly, before activating Pulse, and she escapes. The crucial mistakes I made here was of course missing Banish, but I also hit before using Pulse, meaning I slowed down with the normal basic attack, whereas I probably could have slowed her down if I hit a successful Pulse attack. So as I teleport back, I complete my Bancroft's Talon. This is the second item I would recommend you go for. It basically gives you a ton of magical power, 100 to be more specific, and 12% lifesteal. Plus you get more magical power with every percent of your health missing, which makes it great during duels. Now things are quickly spiraling out of control for them. Me and Bastet are doing really well, which is really good for us, because we are the ones that are supposed to be doing most of the damage in the late game, because our characters skill the best. I notice Bastet is going in on her, and I'm not sure if she can do that on her own, so I go in. Thor also arrives. Thor actually blocks on her. Great job there, buddy. I kill on her. Bastet actually goes in on Thor, who is easy prey for the cat lady. She kills Thor. Freya comes in. I miss the banish on Freya. Freya actually banishes Bastet. I figure I can probably take her on. I know for a fact she doesn't have her ultimate because I just got mine and I used mine about 20-30 seconds before she used hers. So I'm pretty confident in here. She actually runs away. I figure I kill the creeps. She engages. I engage her instead. I use my ultimate knowing she doesn't have hers yet. I kill her off and her ultimate should be up about now, I'm thinking. As I go back, I should have enough money for a third item. As a third item, I find getting the Fatalis works best. The Fatalis basically gives you a ton of attack speed, movement speed, and reduces the movement speed reduction when moving backwards, which is always handy. Plus you get even more movement and attack speed when you attack, essentially in the form of stacks. Another item which works really well is called the Demonic Grip. This gives you more attack power, which isn't a huge deal, but is nice to have. Even more attack speed, and more importantly, once you finish this item, you will lower your enemies' magical protection once you hit them. Getting both might be a little bit overkill on the attack speed though, so getting the Spear of the Mages instead of the Demonic Grip is also pretty good. Spear of the Mages gives you more magical power, more magical penetration, and also reduces the enemy's god's magical protection when you hit them, but doesn't give you attack speed. Either way though, I find getting these two items works really well. Keep in mind that the Vampiric Shroud and Death's Toll will be sold in the endgame, so you still have 2 slots left for situational items, such as straight up more magical power or a defensive item like Wall of Absolution. Now, to their credit, it only took us 16 minutes to get the mid tower, which isn't much at all. Hebo managed to escape, but Anhur comes in from behind, hits me with a spear. I activate Valkyrie's discretion, wait for him to jump, finish him off with the last 2 shots. Then Freya goes in on me, activates her Valkyrie's discretion to get out of Umir's ultimate. I absorb most of the damage with Aegis. I should be able to win here in a straight up battle due to Irradiate, and it seems I do. I activate Sprint in order to chase Thor, but it seems Bastet is more than capable of handling him on her own. And there is a Thor dead. Sobek is still trying to defend their left tower, all on his own. I don't really feel like tower diving here, because I'll probably die, so I'm just gonna wait for Sobek to get away from his tower. Let's be honest though, he's probably not gonna do that. But Agni and Hel are pushing the left lane, so he has no real choice but to fight or run away. It seems he doesn't want to run away, and he is too honorable and tries a brave defense here at the left tower. I doubt he's gonna succeed against 5 champions here, but he's trying. We go in on him, and to his credit, he does manage to survive quite a long time. I should be able to kill him here though. I finish him off with Pulse. We get their tower and Hebo is staring at us in an angry fashion, but that is the surrender and we have won the game. As you can see, Freya can be a pretty solid mid-hero, and I hope this helped to showcase her. Either way, she is quickly becoming one of my favorite gods in the game. Thanks for watching, I've been Haas, and I'll see you guys on the next Smite video.